sure we show up all right.
My roommate just got clipped in the back.
All right. I think we're coming through all right. So, let me pull up the notes quick. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 5 of the EQNX podcast. I'm the host, Firewolf, and I'm here with this week's guest, RagingCherry. Why don't you introduce yourself?
How's it going? So everybody just knows me as Cherry, gamer tag, RagingCherry. Long story short, I used to get pissed off and rage like super hard. But for those who know me now, that's not exactly how I am anymore. But I've been in esports for a number of years now, running events since like 2000, I'd say 11, mainly with fighting games, but then kind of evolving into just different genres and verticals of the industry as I moved on in my career.
Yeah, that's cool. So, could you kind of start just like chronological orders, kind of how you got started and moving on to where you are now?
Yeah, so if I were to chronologize my esports career, I'd say so. I started out in college, and this is like super important. Was um, I was always a gamer my whole life, kind of growing up, variety of genres, mainly console FPS. And when I think it was going in my fourth year of school, I had a year where I could take off of. I wrestled for like 12 years, so I had a year where I could take off of wrestling and look for that extra time and what I could do. So I actually started a gaming club at my college, which was University of Central Florida. Had about which the school has like 60,000 students. So when you start a gaming club and then there's a flyer up, right, and just says like come play video games for free, there's gonna be a number of people who show up. And our school is actually like super super supportive of us, where every month they would give us like a free ballroom. I think it's a free ballroom, like 5 or 10,000 square feet, unlimited
Wow.
power, internet, manpower and staffing for the actual event. Like they would set up power, internet, AV projection. Like all we had to do was show up and just plug in our consoles and PCs. So what was really exciting was that club started as like 12 just group of friends, and ended up we had like over 400 due paying members like the following year. So
Wow.
what was cool is every month we got to host like a 400 or 500 person LAN on campus, and they'd run for like 12 hours long. We'd host like 4 or 5 console tournaments, maybe one or two like big PC tournaments, like League of Legends or Counter Strike. So it was just awesome seeing like 100 people bring their whole PC setup from their dorm room all the way to like a campus ballroom. So kind of from there, I was looking at different avenues to kind of like explore. I really loved esports. At that time, and I actually changed my major from accounting to radio, television production, so I could jump into the whole esports world of things. And I would say probably that following summer after starting the gaming club was the most important for me, because I ended up getting a internship over at Major League Gaming, where I was a content producer for Smash Brothers, and I got to work on a whole bunch of things Smash wise and Call of Duty, and just met a ton of people in the industry through that experience. And then um, not only got experience in like the live events, but the behind the scenes and just seeing like the business side of it, which really interested me. So from there, long story short, like I met somebody um, at MLG who then introduced me to somebody who introduced me to ESL, and I got hired there. And I worked as a project manager for 3 years over there, working on a number of different titles and genres. Guild Wars, Counter Strike, Dota, Hearthstone, Pokemon. The list just goes on. So yeah, it was kind of like a long journey. A couple of years at ESL, I spent some time at Smash GG, working on their partnerships team, and then about 2 years ago, I joined Red Bull. Um, Red Bull North America out here in Santa Monica, and yeah, now I work in the what we call the Southwest region. So I manage anything gaming that's in like Southern California, Vegas, and Arizona.
Wow. I think I had a very similar start with the console FPS. I think there's probably a lot of people, like a lot of my friends, that's where we all kind of
Right,
started.
right, right.
But what I found really interesting was like your success of the gaming club at your school, because I worked for the gaming club at Iowa State as well, and we have like 20 to 30 people show up to our lands, and it
Right, right,
took over a decade before our school could even like give us any kind of real support. It was usually, hey,
right,
here's
right.
this classroom you can use. So I think that's really interesting. You did say like you've kind of worked a lot in fighting games, so I'm always curious how people transition over to fighting games, or like what really grabs you about that specific genre,
Yeah.
because I kind of had
Oh
that similar
man.
thing
Okay.
happen.
Yeah. So for me, I would kind of relate it as close as I can to wrestling. So I wrestled from seventh grade all the way through fifth year of college, and one of the biggest things that so this is funny, right? When I started the gaming club, I actually started it to find friends to play Halo and Call of Duty with. Um, and at our first event that we ever hosted, we had I'm trying to remember the numbers. It was like 18 for Halo, like 40 for Marvel, and then somebody actually messaged me and said like, hey, my boyfriend's really good at Smash Melee. Can he host a tournament like alongside your event? And I just remember kind of like I didn't really care about it, so I was like, yeah, you guys can host, but I don't care as much. Like kind of just like it was like a friendly like you can be there, but like I'm focusing on Halo. And 97 people showed up for Melee,
Wow.
and but I didn't note it. What I didn't actually know was the guy at the time, he was ranked top 10 in the world in Melee by his name Cobalt. So,
Oh yeah.
he posted a tournament. This was like 2010, 2011. Smash was still kind of in this weird area, like right before it got its, the Smash stock and like the revive. So, Smash just started showing up in numbers. And the thing that drew me to it was even when we didn't feature Smash as a game, they'd still show up like 50, 60 people deep, bringing their TVs. They were just like, if you have a space for us, we'll set up and play. So eventually I was like, you know what? Let me give this game a try, kind of like earn the respect, because I had no ties, no relation to anybody in the club from the Smash side, only the FPS. So I ended up entering a Brawl tournament as my first like Smash event. It was okay. I didn't have like a ton of fun with it. And then like 2 weeks later, somebody showed up with Project M at another event. And for those who don't know, Project M, it's a mod of Brawl to make it play like Melee. But what's the most important about it is every character is good. Like it doesn't matter who you are. Like in Melee, there's like tier lists, and there's certain characters that you just cannot win with, or just super unplayable, or you have to play a certain play style. But um, in PM, it allows for, you to pick anybody that you want, try out new things, be aggressive, play campy, like, and everyone kind of has their own style, and that's what I loved was, Link and Gandorf are not good in any other Smash game, as they are in like Project M, anyways. So
Right.
ended up falling in love with the game, just playing it a ton. The community was awesome, and I know kind of Smash and FGC are, kind of put as like two separate categories within the FGC, or sorry, Smash and the rest of the games. But Smash is always alongside the other games at events like CEO and Evo and Calm Breakers and the other big ones. So I ended up getting to watch and be a part of these other communities, and especially being from Orlando, CEO right in my backyard, I got to see like the most awesome event, and seeing like the top 8 entrances, and people kind of like have fun and talk smack, and that's what like really drew me to the FGC, and want to support it as much as I could. So, yeah, just kind of throughout the years, like as we were integrating, I ended up going to more, um, I ended up going to more Smash events on its own than, like the mix of fighting games. But since going to, like I always make sure I go to CEO, Evo, and Combo Breaker. Those are like, the top 3 in my mind. So,
Yeah, I've been to Combo Breaker, I've been to Evo, but CEO's next on the list. Hopefully, once we get events
yeah,
back at some point, I will be able to make it
yeah.
down there. But
I would
man,
recommend it because they make CEO like such a fun event, and then the top 8, just like seeing everyone like what songs they pick, the intros that they do, and seeing Jabali evolve it from like a small hotel ballroom with just just like 3-foot staging and that's it, to hey, you're walking through a tunnel like it's a wrestling WWE entrance. Like that's awesome.
oh yeah, the top 8 is super cool to watch, even from home. Like when you're not in it, it's super cool to watch every player like come in with their intro song and to step into the ring like it's a professional boxing match. It's really
Yeah.
entertaining. But
Yeah.
man, starting with Brawl as your first Smash tournament is
Yep. Yep.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. I don't tell a ton of people that, but yeah, Brawl is where I started. So
and I think something that I've noticed from like my experiences, because we also have a pretty large Smash scene at my school, which it usually gets more or higher turnout than our normal gaming events for like a
right.
weekly
Right.
Smash tournament, which is super interesting. And that's kind of what got me to participate in the Smash scene as well. Was just there were so many players that showed up, and there were so many
Yeah.
good
Yeah. I
players on
mean,
like every college campus.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like with fighting games, you pretty much have to show up. Like netcode is notoriously not the best across multiple fighting games. Like there's actually a joke that Melee's Wi-Fi, which is like a mod, kind of like fan community made. Like there's a joke that like that has better internet than some, like Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate and the other like official online. So
Yeah, I would definitely not call Nintendo's online services the most reliable in terms of
yeah.
high quality
Well, I mean,
connection.
it's not even just like, again, people kind of have that issue with, and everyone goes into like, rollback netcode is what we want, and not every game's doing it right. So the fact that like everyone has to show up and play in person, that's like what helps bring the community together, right? Like imagine if there was no weeklies or monthlies or, like no, right? People would go to majors, but you wouldn't really get that interaction or sort of like that friendship, camaraderie to feel part of a community if you're just showing up like once a month and, it feels like a tournament, you're in and out type of deal. The weeklies are like the more kind of hangout, intimate environment, right? And, some of my best friends today are people I met at, Smash tournaments. So,
Right. I would definitely agree. Like the in-person part of fighting games is like the best part of being in the community, and I don't even compete as much compared to most people. Like
right,
a lot of
right.
times when I'm going events, I'm working, taking pictures, like covering socials, and I still have a blast. So considering those are really some of the best parts of fighting games, and having been to other games as well, like the in-person for esports in general is super fun. So my understanding is you've worked on a lot of different games and like in-person tournaments and stuff. So
Right,
could you
right.
kind of talk about your experiences with those?
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. I'm actually pulling up. I have like a list of a bunch of different games I've worked on. So, I mean, the one thing is like if you know how to run one event right for a certain game, is it's not super hard to adapt. It's really more about what fits like the aesthetics of that game or what would sit right with the community. My job at ESL was a project manager, which meant like A through Z, a project just like fully. Um, just kind of fully owning that whole side. So it was like if a client came to us and said, "Hey, we have a new game that's coming out," or we want to run a pro league or monthly tournaments or something, right? We would, kind of dive into that game, look into what the community, like trends were, what did people want on Reddit, that type of deal, and sort of like build out a really, robust program for them. And sometimes it was just like a one-off. Hey, we want to do a celebrity showdown, or new DLC comes out, or that type of deal. So we would yeah, we would just kind of look at from beginning to end, budgeting, timing, how we're going to promote it, content that we'd make. And what was really cool was at a company like ESL, I got to really dip my feet into a ton of different games. I think off the top of my head, I've worked on like over 20 different titles and
Wow.
pretty much every genre, even as far as from like fighting games to mobile games to, TCG as well. So, yeah, I got to work on a ton of different stuff. I mean, um, anywhere, from a small studio show that lasts 4 hours to, renting out a stadium to run a Counter-Strike and PUBG tournament. So, yeah, a whole variety of, experience and just like, super thankful for, those opportunities that kind of helped like progress my career.
Right. So you said there, like once you kind of know how to run the events, the differences between the games don't really affect too much besides more fitting the style.
Right, right,
Um,
right. It's like, yeah, it's more like learning the event. Anybody, right? Like anybody can pick up a game, play it, watch streams, whatever. And I'd say the same thing about like events, right? Like once you start doing a couple of events or, yeah, once you start doing a couple of events, like you kind of get the hang of it, and it's just kind of looking at like how do we retrofit or outfit an event for, like a Vainglory final event will look much different than a Street Fighter final event, right? Like if
Right.
you're talking infrastructure, internet, right? Like broadcast needs, like it all changes depending on what's going on. So
Right. So so I guess I'd be interested in what some of the
right.
different actual differences that you've noticed are when working with, say, fighting games versus a shooter game or a TCG.
Yeah, so one thing I would definitely at least say first is it also depends on budget, right? And like
Mm.
what the game devs are like looking to work with you on, and are you adding replays or are you adding specific content pieces, um, or are we building like a really insane stage, right? Like the reference I had for CEO, 5 years ago, it was just a wrestling ring and just like 3 foot tall platforms that are pretty cheap to rent. Now he has an insane production with lights and fog and wireless cameras. So um, the biggest thing, it really just depends on the game, right? Because fighting games, all right, Street Fighter, there's no internet needed for playing the game, but for broadcasting, right? And you could just have one desk, two people sit next to each other. But if you talk about a game like Vainglory or Counter Strike, where you have multiple players, there's required internet for them to play on. Um, you're adding on, imagine a finals event for, Street Fighter, right, being like 30 people, or an event for Counter Strike being, around the same, but it's like 8 teams of 5, right? So, 30 people can run in and out of a stage. Timing, right? Street Fighter match can take, around 30 minutes for like a best of 5,
Mm.
but a best of 5 in Counter Strike is like 12 hours long. So, staffing, venues, there's also like union fees, which, for those who don't know, union is like if you're in a specific city, if you will, it's all the workers kind of unionize. And like if you hire them, they all get same rates, same hours that they're working. Um, and it actually drives up like costs a lot, and it also affects where you pick on where you're hosting events. Like if you go to Vegas, events are going to be very expensive. Same with like Los Angeles, San Francisco. um, but if you go to I don't want to say Iowa, but if you go to Iowa or maybe even Oklahoma, or even if you go like East LA, like super far out, there's no unions, and it actually cuts your costs significantly. You can spend, for example, right, like you can hire audio engineer for $700 a day just on a regular basis, but on a union they could be $35 an hour, but you have to hire like 10 people or something, right? Or you have to have like a head audio and a backup, and yeah, it just like dives into it even like super trying to think of the word, like the very small like nitty gritty details just go way up when you jump into bigger games and more budget. And again, when you're talking about infrastructure, like for Vainglory, not only do we have to bring right, Street Fighter, you have to have a PS4 and 2 monitors. Or Smash or any fighting game. Vainglory was like we had to get 40 iPads. We had to buy all these dongles that like let you charge and listen, because we wouldn't let players use their own accounts.
Right.
We also had to, or sorry, not use their own headphones. Then we had to also create accounts for them, because of anyone like messaging them, there's stuff with like cheating and everything you have to look into. There's like a whole world of stuff that you have to do depending on which game it is, right?
Right. So, how much work then goes into like the contingency plans or the crisis management, just preparing for things to go wrong?
Well, okay, so I guess there's 2 different ways, right? So there's contingency, which is if equipment or anything goes wrong. Then there's crisis, obviously, if like something really bad happens.
Mm.
Um, Contingency plans at most events, it's you have a backup, but it's more like let's put all of our eggs into making sure plan A works, because mainly your backup is going to be, hey, we're going offline, or we're going to go to casters, they're going to talk while we're going to try to fix some logistical issues. So yeah, essentially for a big event, like I'll take IEM for example. That was we rented the Oracle Arena up in Oakland, where the Warriors play at, and we did a PUBG, Counter Strike, and a VR tournament. We had like a 3-day build out for that, and what that allowed for was significant amount of testing. We actually had like our PAs and and workers like all playing PUBG. We had to connect like 80 computers at once. So we put a ton of effort into testing and having a full rehearsal day. And if anything goes wrong, it's kind of like we have to fix on the spot. And crazy enough, like things do go wrong live. And that's probably the biggest challenge I would say is being able to react and sort of keep your cool in those situations, because like the last thing you want is a stream to go down, or 10,000 attendees in a stadium sitting around for 45 minutes as you're trying to fix like a simple internet or like driver issue. Um, and you just you want to make sure you're the most prepared. We at IM, we had this was crazy, the night before at like 9 p.m. or so, before the event, there was a major drive issue, and it affected every computer that we had, all 80 plus the 20 backups. So we ended up, looking like, hey, we can come in tomorrow morning, or we can stay super late tonight, put everybody into overtime. And that was the decision we made. We're like, we need to make sure this event's ready to go. We stayed super late. We actually had to um, re-image
Oh
all
my gosh.
100 hard drives. Thankfully, we had a solution where we could do like 10 or 15 at a time. But then not only was it re-imaging, it was retesting, replugging in, um, and just making sure that your team is full of leaders and people that can kind of keep the team going and not freak out, right? Because if the people in charge are freaking out, then everyone else is going to freak out. So yeah, that was probably like one of the most intense events I got to work on, just because it was like the game was like still kind of not in beta, but it was still in beta for like esports and testing. And we had to have developers on site like helping us launch games and get people in and like make sure all 80 were in the game, and if not, we had to like reset. So um, yeah, other games, especially PC games, just have a whole nother world to them compared to console games, just because you're dealing with drivers and internet infrastructure. And I mean, it's the thing, anybody can show up and they plug in their mice or keyboard, and who knows what they have on there, and whether it's like somebody's trying to cheat, or maybe they're bringing in a custom keyboard that takes extra drivers to install or something, right? Like there's a whole nother world compared to just plugging in your fight stick or controller.
Right. Well, having run events in Iowa, I can highly recommend to not do that here. But just I've seen at smaller events how much can go wrong, so I can only imagine
Right.
the stuff that you have to prepare for at those larger events. So, what is there any like other kind of prep work that people really wouldn't expect or people really don't see that is really important that you always have to make sure gets done?
So obviously it's different when you're running a personal event versus something that's like for your job, right? I
Right.
think the biggest thing is part of my job is having to micromanage, which kind of sucks to a degree. Creating a milestones document, which is just like, here's everything we have to do for this event. And any event I work on, there's a certain template I use, and it has like anywhere from like 60 to 100 different lines of hey, like, did we set the website up? Do we get this email going? And timelines are actually much more important there, because you're working with game developers and internal stakeholders, right? Like, I can't be late by a day, I can't be late by a week, right? If I worked on like my personal events, I said, hey, we're gonna do the announcement in 3 days or something, like it flies a lot easier than if I do it at my job, right? So
Right.
kind of having to balance that. And at work, right, it's not like a personal event where I just have one big event a year and that's it. At work, I'll have you know 15, 20 events a year. At ESL, I would turn around projects in 2, 3 weeks sometimes, or I'd have 6 months to work on it. But in the meantime, I'd be running 3 or 4 other events. So I think the biggest thing is like time management and balancing, on like a work side. But as you kind of get bigger, get into bigger events, like you look at venues and working with them, right? I mentioned unions earlier. You have to go through like insurance agreements. You don't have to do that at a card shop or at your college campus. There's catering agreements and shipping, and like a whole different world of just kind of, and again, it's nothing that's like impossible, right? It's all stuff that you just kind of get with experience. And I'm still learning, pretty much daily with my job on these things. So I think it's just more of like, how do you fine tune that quality and really make it as like buttoned up as possible. I always kind of reference that I haven't worked on a like 10 out of 10 event yet, meaning like everything went perfect, no issues. I felt like the quality was like on par. You know, I think my closest I've gotten to is maybe I'd say like an 8.5 or so out of 10.
Right.
So just kind of refining all those details and just really buttoning it up, like thinking of little things like consumer journey as they walk into an event, they pick up their badge. How does that look? How does purchasing stuff from the shop look? What's there to do in the immediate area, outside? Like I've been guilty of doing events in the middle of nowhere because it was more financially stable for me. And everything to do outside of the event like wasn't the best, right? So like I had to kind of um, take that into account. And as I look into hosting like future events, right, it's like, okay, we won't go to this area anymore. We're gonna like it has to be, in this state or this region. So I think it's more like it's not that there's anything that's like unheard of, if you will. It's just kind of the details just get a little bit tighter, and there's a lot more busy work as you up level your event, I would say.
Right. I'm always impressed by big events and just how much they're able to balance and still put off an amazing event. And I always think of Combo Breaker when people talk about like the
Combo
surrounding area
breakers,
because
awesome.
it's an amazing tournament, but as soon as you want to go get food somewhere
Yep,
near the
yep.
near the venue, well, at least the old venue.
Yeah. It was kind of out there, but the one thing that they did to really make sure it kicked ass was 24-hour venue, which I'm
Yes.
a huge fan of. And Calm Breaker always took a ton of pride in, hey, we're gonna run 30 tournaments throughout the weekend. There's gonna be community ran events. I remember last year I was doing some social for Red Bull, and I'm walking around the venue at like 2 a.m. and there was just crowds going crazy, like crazy hype for mystery game tournaments. There was a crew battle for Mortal Kombat. And I remember I stayed there till like 3 a.m. Just watching this Texas versus Florida Mortal Kombat like crew battle. And that's the one thing is like Rick lets the community kind of program their own activity and activations around the event. And again, the hotel being 24 hours, pretty much us taking over the hotel is nice too, so we don't get in trouble for like being loud or rowdy.
Yeah.
There's a pool that's available. There's setups that are like right next to it too. So there's that's what I would say is like you know yeah, Calm Breaker, like yeah, it is a pain to get to, and not a ton like go outside of it, but he does a really good job of making sure everything inside like keeps people there, right? Like I've been guilty of doing an event in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing on, and the only programming I had was like just playing these tournaments, and that was it. Or like I don't know, kind of just left to the community, like, hey, you can stay overnight and play, but we won't run an event, or a small group of people are running an event. So it is important to make sure that there is, I would say, 360 programming.
Right. Well, yeah. Once you're in the venue at Combo Breaker, the everything there is just unrivaled.
Right, right.
It's so good. So I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a different facet of some of the events you've worked on with the
Mhm.
charity side. So, how have you? Well, first, could you kind of talk about some of the charity events you've worked on, and then kind of how you manage integrating those charity goals into a gaming event?
Yeah, so I volunteered for a number of events, but the one I can probably speak the best on was my own Smash the Record. So I used to run a hybrid Smash and speedrunning event from 2014 to 2017. And what we really wanted to do, this was something we came with in college, and it was like, hey, our program is hosting big events on campus. Um, we're not doing a ton of stuff outside or anything really for charity, and we want to host something really cool. So we thought about, hey, let's do a Smash event that's really more for fun, and look at how we can raise money for do something good in the meantime. And this was really more of a play. Back in the day, it was kind of a play to like show our school that gamers could do something for good. So we ended up saying, all right, let's take a game like Smash, for example, where there's sort of like unlimited opportunity in the game. There's items, there's crazy stages, there's modes like stamina mode and Invisible Man, and you could have any number of stocks. There's crew battles. There's like whole array of things that you can do. So we looked at Smash and said, hey, let's do a Melee tournament and take as many side events as we can and kind of plug those in to make really fun and engaging content. So what we really liked was, we were able to say like, hey, we'll have one of the best players in the world, Mango, play a bunch of bad people. So we did a thing called Mango versus the Baddies, and we gave him 25 stocks, and we had 40 people at four. Sorry, we had 25 people, 4 stocks each, so it was 25 versus 100. We took like 10 stocks total.
Oh my gosh.
And what we did was we said like, hey, if you donate, we will actually add more stocks and have more people go in and fight him. And we would do donation incentives like, hey, we'll glitch the game on screen. We'll do some really cool like hidden techniques that not everybody knows about. Or hey, we'll pie somebody in the face, or we'll read your donation out loud if you donate over like $20. So yeah, it was really easy to plug Smash into it, which was just like super thankful that that was the game I kind of started with, because I feel like if I tried with other games, community wouldn't have been not I would say like as responsive, but it's a lot easier when you have more tools with Smash. And again, not saying it's like the best game, because you can do this with any game across the board. I've talked to people about doing this for like Counter-Strike and some others. It's really more on like, how do you find the fun, engaging content that like people are willing to watch, pay for, that type of deal, right? So, but when it came to the actual charity side of things, I mean, it's really up to whatever charity you're comfortable with. There's a ton of great charities out there, and we looked around at a ton. One thing that we did want to kind of keep in mind was finding charities I would say people can connect with to a degree. If it's something like we ended up going with St. Jude, which benefits childhood cancer, and it's this is something that a ton of people can relate to. It's a worldwide charity. It wasn't like, hey, this is a charity just in Orlando, Florida, and not saying that there's like a wrong or bad charity to go with, right? It's just more of like what kind of gets more eyes, more people can relate to, because then they feel good about donating to it, right? Like if somebody in Europe is watching and for it's like a local Orlando charity, maybe it's like, hey, we're building a school for whatever, like, yeah, it's a good cause, but I don't know, I know it sounds like bad for me to say that, right? But I think it's more of like just find something that people can resonate with. And not only that, like there's a ton of good charities, and see who's willing to to work with you, right? Like we looked at 2 or 3 different charities, and we saw a really big opportunity with St. Jude, because like coincidentally the same month that we were planning Smash the Record, Twitch tweeted out that they were partnering with St. Jude for an activation called St. Jude Play Live. And we dove into it, we looked at it, and it was like, oh, this is awesome. Like not only are they officially partnered with them, but there's also rewards for amount of money that you raise. So we actually took those rewards and said to our community, like, hey, if you donate, you'll be raffled in to win these prizes. And that was like a huge deal, was we were actually able to work with St. Jude on providing prizing for people to donate, because at the time we had like 93 people show up to our event, so venue fees didn't pay for all the bills, so
right.
And we ended up just being super happy working with them. We got a ton of positive feedback, and we ended up just saying like, hey, we love working with them, let's keep going. And like we also, I don't know, I feel like it's cool to kind of pick one charity and stick with it, if you will. That way we kind of have like that legacy, right? Like For the Kids was always our thing, and every year, right? And yeah, it was just really nice kind of like coming back and just saying like we raised $150,000 over 4 years. Like that was just incredible. So yeah, I would just say like, as far as charities, like, yeah, there's I volunteered with other speedrunning events, like Games Done Quick, an event called Calithon, and I'm always like actively watching, being part of other events like where possible. But yeah, as far as the charities and stuff, like for the main part, I speak on my own.
Right. So I kind of want to circle back to choosing charities in a second, but first I want to talk about like incentivizing donations. So one charity stream that I watch a lot is the Guardian Con stream. I've been watching and playing Destiny since it came out. Yeah, it's a huge event. They also partner with St. Jude. They've also used the For the Kids
Yep.
motto. But one thing I think they do really well is incentivizing people to donate, whether it's you can enter a giveaway or you can
Hmm.
handicap the streamer somehow, or there's all different kinds of things that they come up with. How do you kind of talked about it a little bit, but how do you really get people to donate and think that like they're really benefiting the charity, but they're also getting something out of it themselves?
So I would say that 100% is just around the messaging of the event. The first year we ended up raising 14,000, which was just incredible for a first year event that had, 1,000 viewers or whatever we had on Twitch at the time. Um, Really, your incentives need to be good. So if it's, hey, we're going to, I don't even know of like a bad incentive, but good incentives, I would say, like, hey, we're going to take this pro player and we're going to pie him in the face, or we're going to do a special exhibition between, like a full roster kind of Iron Man between top players. Hey, we're going to add on a new playthrough of a game or that type of deal. Like speedrunning has infinite amount of possibilities of, naming the file. That's a very huge one, right? Naming characters, choosing routes. There's like bonus games like, hey, this really popular game will get unlocked if you donate this amount of money. So I think it's like I'd say two or three parts. I mean, the first one is your incentives need to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be overly expensive. I can't say, hey, $50,000 to have like Mango play a bunch of randoms, right? Like it needs to be an attainable goal that
Mm-hmm.
anyone can hit, and like it's something where you can say, hey, if everyone donates like $5 or something, that we can get there. Or maybe there's someone who throws in 500 or doing whatever. You want to have like goals and make sure that they're not too high, but also not too low, because if you fill them all up, then you don't have any extra content to add, right? And yes, it's good to hit your goals, but you want to make it so it's like it's an actual challenge. So there's digital incentives, right, which are the content, stream, activations, and then there's physical incentives like hey, you can get raffled in to win a chair, merchandise, signed controllers. Like we always did stuff like this where we would have like a signed chair by everyone in top 8, or signed controllers, or again, as I said, we partnered with St. Jude. We give out a ton of hoodies, like headsets, mice, and I actually went to a ton of our partners and brought the opportunity to them and said like, hey, we really want you to be part of this event, but what's really important for us is to have incentives for people to donate, so they feel like they have a chance of getting something out of it too. um, and then the third part is just the messaging of the charity. Make sure people know, they have info on the charity. They know what it's about, what you're supporting, and why. Because if it's something that everyone can feel good about, like it's much easier to donate, right? Like I will donate
Mm-hmm.
to charities I'm much more familiar with, for that reason. And funny enough, a couple of years ago, I didn't know what Direct Relief was as a charity, and after watching enough events and seeing videos and reading up on them and seeing like how much good they do for the entire world. They help with disaster relief just like worldwide. So um, hurricanes or anything environmental, and especially COVID-19,
Right.
they are just like incredible. So kind of seeing what they're doing, right? And it's like, I'll always donate to them when I can, or when there's an event. And if there's something that's like, hey, a friend of mine's gonna do this, or like, holy crap, there's a really cool item that I can win if I donate during this time or this amount. Like that's always important.
Right. And I forget the exact number, but I remember GuardianCon always has, I think it's like $28, and the whole point of $28 is it runs the St. Jude Hospital for 1 second.
Mm,
So like that's why they have that
yeah,
specific number, and that's like always
yeah,
something that I tried
awesome, yeah,
to hit, which I is it's such a like 28 when you think about it is a very random number for a donation, but when you put the context behind it, like it's so much more
yeah,
valuable.
yeah.
So then you mentioned you did choose St. Jude for Smash the Record, but what all did you look into, and what was important when you were looking at deciding which charity to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like kind of what I touched on before, something that we were looking at a couple different charities. It was like them, ASPCA, some other cancer relief charities that were in the space. Maybe when we just kind of looked at like, and this was 2013 when we were planning to 2014, and we were just kind of looking around. It's like, okay, well, what can people at our school get behind? Because we were really targeting, that community first.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually a ton of like ASPCA actually partnered with our school, was on campus from time to time. And we had done 1 or 2 events with them. The club itself also, we actually did a couple charity events from. I think we raised like $300 or $400 at a like a bowling tournament that we did. So at that time, like much different than now. We also kind of looked at like, hey, what does everybody in the club agree on? So that way we can, really get the buy-in from everyone. Because if we believe in it, then we can get other people to believe in it, and it's more authentic messaging than just kind of like shoving this into people's faces, right? So, yeah, we were tied between a couple back then, and once the Twitch announcement came out, and we were looking around, we started talking to people. It's like, yeah, like St. Jude's a much larger and much more household name than ASPCA, and right, like nothing wrong with that. But we were just kind of looking like, okay, how are we going to raise the most and get the most awareness out of this first year event? Because we wanted this to grow and be into something big. So because of that, we went with St. Jude, and yeah, it was just awesome from there. Because once we believed in it, then we looked into some really cool opportunities, and the jumping into the content side. I forgot to mention this. What was really important about our content was our tournament itself. I'm going to pull this up as I speak. Our tournament itself, the numbers like live were not that insane, but online they were just like ridiculous. And I remember every year our YouTube videos always had over 1 million concurrently, like collectively among all the videos. So
right. Wow, that's
meanwhile, I think, man, I wish I could find it. I think we peaked at like maybe I would like to say like 10K or so first year, and it didn't really jump up too much from there. So yeah.
That's really impressive, though, especially when I think back to kind of what viewership numbers were at that time.
Yeah.
So I did want to talk a little bit more about Smash the Record and kind of the entertainment outside of the bracket. Obviously, I think people always get really interested in, like, I want to watch top 8, I want to see who wins the tournament, I want to watch the really high-level gameplay. How did you go about choosing what to have on stream and as entertainment when bracket wasn't on? And then how did you get people to want to watch it as well?
So I did get some flack for this years ago, but the way I looked at it was, hey, there's 1 million Smash tournaments right now. Like, we're super oversaturated because there's no official league, right? There's no governing body kind of like dictating what's a national event or not. It's just more how many entrants do you get, right? Like if you hit 1,000 entrants, you're pictured as a national. So anybody with money in a good venue, to the money to get that venue can host a national. So we looked at it as 2 different things. So I used to run a national tournament called Paragon. This was a like 2,000 person live event for Melee, Smash 4, and Project M. And the same month I hosted Smash the Record, and the way I looked at it was, at the end, like, yes, Paragon like destroyed Smash the Record as far as like numbers, attendees, like 2,000 live people, over 50,000 concurrents on Twitch, and the YouTube VODs for those were just insane. But there's something about just like running a tournament. It felt just kind of more like, I don't want to say like a factory, just like, hey, like pools, tournament, whatever. Like, I didn't get to have too much fun with it. And for those who know me, like, this is kind of on a personal level. I'm like super chill, always just like, memeing, kind of having fun. And, like, yes, I'm super serious at times, but, when I looked at it, like the same month we had Paragon, then 3 weeks later was our second Smash the Record. And we didn't have too many expectations, because the first year we had 93 people, raised $14,000. The second year we had like 750 people, and we raised $50,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we raised 53 that year. And right after that, it was like, you know what? Like, this is the one event a year that is not a super serious Smash tournament. So we just looked at it and was like, let's put all of our time into this, because this can be something like really special. So we kind of took a lot of pride in this is a non-serious Smash event, and we owned that concept, and that's what helped us plan for programming, where it was like, hey, we're running 30 plus tournaments a weekend, and this is the content you're going to see. Like, we'll run some pools, but what we want you guys to see is like the items tournament, the Pokeballs only, the Pokemon only events, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you can only play Pokemon characters, or like messed up stages, and we looked at it as like, look, this is content that you literally won't see anywhere else. Because the other majors, like, they have to focus on doing a serious tournament and catering to that audience. So we kind of look at that as opportunity for us to capture and really like push on those ideas. And yeah, like we definitely lost stream viewership, and some people weren't as excited about it, but at the end of the day, it was like, look, you guys need to understand what type of event we're running. And people understood that, and they realized like what we were here to do. And we made sure that we programmed like the most entertaining content during the day, and then at night we had other incentives, or like the I would say like the less exciting events, but we still want to give people an opportunity to get on stream, right? Like, because here's the thing: if it's me versus Mewtwo King, I have like no chance ever to take a stock off him. But
Right.
if I'm playing him in a items tournament or a Pokeball, or there's like a really weird stage at like there's stages where you can throw people and kill them at like 40%. I have an opportunity to do that and take a game off him, or like I can do something just like crazy swag, and even if I don't like take a stock, I still do something really cool. And yeah, it was just really cool, like giving people that one-on-one time with top players and commentators, instead of just like a, hey, I'm busy, or I need to focus and like train. It was cool to see Mango Mewtwo King just sitting playing friendlies with people for hours, right? Like
Right.
that was the coolest. So
And I think that's something that's so unique to Smash. Like in a fighting game, or most other fighting games, you can't say, "Oh, let's just turn on items and let people have fun."
right.
It's just some absolutely crazy stuff is going to happen because you can't predict what's going to go on.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that's
So
really
it is
interesting.
challenging. It is challenging if you jump into other fighting games. But we've talked about like for games like Counter Strike or Call of Duty, like, hey, we're gonna do certain weapons only, or riot shields, or hey, we're gonna do whatever math, and you can set teams, right? You can do like 1 versus 4, right? And imagine you have
Right.
pro COD player versus just like 3 or 4 randoms, right? Like, yeah, in theory he should lose, but very high chance that he just destroys everybody, right? And that's what's like compelling, because you want them to lose. Um, and they probably wouldn't do that normally, but if it's something like a charity event, or a cool incentive that's like, hey, you as this top player, like, you get to come in and help with this incentive, um, and be part of something, and they might be like, hell yeah, I want to do it, or hey, I'll donate and match, or like I'll just promote on my channel. Like, they also get a good feeling out of doing that too. So that was always like super special.
Yeah. And honestly, I think kind of the backlash is interesting because, especially right now with like the situation that
Right.
we're in with the world, FGC content has been kind of under the microscope of what can we do that's not straight competitive footage? Like, what can we do that's
Right.
interesting? And I almost think like that kind of thing would have a more positive perception right now, as people are looking
Hmm.
for entertaining content past just the I want to watch a 3 hour VOD of someone playing competitive online sets.
Yeah. One of my good friends, this guy Justin, he I know him from speedrunning community. He's not a Smash person at all, and he always tells me, he's like, yeah, I don't enjoy watching just regular fighting game streams, like people practicing or just playing online.
Mm-hmm.
Not super enjoyable. And to a degree, sorry, yeah, to a degree, sorry, to a point, I agree with him on it. Like, and I'm guilt. Like, I stream Smash all day, every day, and what I try to do is, like, I try to swag as hard as I can, or play random characters, or do whatever. And yeah, it is compelling, and but also I'm not a top player, right? Like, it's different when it's top players. And one thing, a couple things I've seen, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna go random characters online, or like, Brian F doing the sub wars.
Mm-hmm.
There's another guy named Pluff. He at times he's done a thing where he tries to speed run online. So he puts up a timer, and he'll join just like a random lobby. and basically his goal is to beat his PB in beating someone online. And like I think that's like super trolly, but super funny.
Right.
So I mean, but that's the thing is like FGC, the stuff that it lacks, and not saying like the people lack the game limitations, right?
Right.
People make up in it in personality and content, and the FGC has that personality because like of our live events, the integrating with communities, and hey, I'm sitting 2 feet away from you as I'm fighting you for thousands of dollars, or trying to make it out of pools. Like there's a lot of tensions and tense moments, and yeah, there's people who are salty, but then there's people who are classy and mimi and stuff like that. Like if I lose on a big stage, I'm just gonna laugh, like and I'm gonna try something stupid. Like if I know there's no chance of me winning, I'm gonna do something like really dumb. So I don't know. I think it's like right now more than ever is the opportunity for the FGC to shine, because there's no tournaments, right, that people are playing for, no big ones. Like right now there's a Smash tournament that's like really huge online.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few others, but like I don't think Evo's going to try to go online, or CEO or Combo Breaker, right? Like so I think right now it's like, how do because imagine, right, if every FGC streamer, and including Smash, jumps on and they just stream themselves playing gameplay, like it's purely just going to be, what's the difference between watching, Justin Wong or Music King besides the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, they're both top players, but they're going to go to who has like a better personality, or are they doing a different type of content that day? Because at any moment you can watch somebody just practicing, or hey, we're trying to get online lobbies and that type of deal. So I do like that people are coming up with their own ideas, and I'm seeing more in the community, YouTube, and jump on Twitch, and like Luffy, one of our athletes in France, he never streamed before, and
Yeah.
he started streaming, and I'm trying to see if he's live right now. He was live earlier. He was running a tournament out of France, and he had like 250 people watching. Meanwhile, 3 days ago, he was streaming just like net play and had like 30, 40 people watching him, right? So it's kind of like, what's the unique content that you can add? How, what's going to keep people staying, right? And I mean, the world of Twitch, it's super, super personality and gameplay placed, but you look at Fortnite and Call of Duty, and yeah, there's 1,000 people that are amazing at this game, but what keeps you there watching besides them just like destroying people, right? Like Shroud is like a good example of like, he's just incredible at any FPS he picks up, and
Yeah.
people just start watching because of that. And then like, I mean, yeah, he has a great personality as well, but like you have to have a perfect like mix of the two, because I can have a good personality and I suck at the game, and I'll only get so many viewers. But if I'm good and my personality is good, or my content's good, instead of just like, hey, I'm gonna wake up and press start streaming on OBS, but if I'm like planning out, my full day or the next 3 streams or whatever, and I have like actual, content or a plan behind it, like that'll, it's like the work you put in, will yield the results.
Right. And I think there's always a place for unique content. If you can produce
Yeah.
something that is unique, people
Yeah.
should find it eventually if they don't
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
But I wanted to touch on something. You've mentioned it a few times, a different side of your events, the speedrunning side. So I'm curious how you got interested in the speedrunning side.
Yeah, so speedrunning. All right, I hope I won't take up too much time with this one. So Smash Record 2014 happened. It was just Smash Bros. Smash Record 2015 came around, and we were looking at more content to add. And crazy enough, we looked at certain speedrunners that also come into the Smash community that are known, and we picked out a couple. Siglemic, who was like famous for Super Mario 64. He was also famous for being like a tech skill master in Melee. I don't know how much you know about like Melee, but he had a record of like 38 shines in a row
Wow.
back then, and I can explain that later. But we looked at Siglemic, we looked at Narcissa, and we looked at Fuzziness. And these are all people who played Melee or any Smash game, were super known in the Smash community, but also did speedrunning. And at the time we said, hey, we're gonna bring out all 3 of them. Each day they're gonna do a like showcase run, if you will. And at the time it was just like, hey, this will be just a small quirky add-on type of deal to the event. And we contacted them. They were like all for it. Announcements come around. We tweet out, hey, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to get a speed run each day by these people. So it's going to be like Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, I think Castlevania 64 as well. And then we also were going to have Fuzziness, he speedruns Melee Adventure Mode. And it's actually like super technical and really fun to watch. And basically, this is something that the community can connect with. So we tweet these out, and out of nowhere, I personally and our like event Twitter started getting DMs from random speedrunners that were like, hey, I saw this announcement. Can I be part of it? Because the speedrunners retweeted it, of course. And they were like, what is this event? I don't know about it. Can I speedrun? And we ended up getting like, I think like around 20 or 22 different people that reached out, which was like incredible for an event that wasn't a speedrunning event at all. And I remember it started getting more hype. There was people from Canada and like Rhode Island and a couple hours away in Florida that were messaging me like, hey, I want to come to this. And we're like, I talked to my team, they're like, yeah, let's do it, but let's give them like off hours. Let's not take away from the event itself, or let's put them on a second channel, because we were still like, this is a Smash event first.
Right.
So we did that. And I actually had some sponsors. I had a sponsor that came in and they were like, hey, we want to fly out speedrunners. We don't want to bring Smashers. And I was like, this is nuts, right? So I hit up this guy named Whitwix. I don't know if you know him, but he's currently on CLG, and he's like one of the biggest streamers on Twitch. And he used to do this game called I Want to Be the Boshi, which is like the hardest freaking game to play. It's just like an insane mod. And we hit him up. I was talking to him about it, and he was like, yeah, I'll be at TwitchCon. You should come and talk to me in person there. I'm doing like this like, small party. I go there, and I remember there's a guy just like sitting, like Whitwix is talking to a friend, and I'm waiting to talk to him. There's a guy sitting next to me, and I say, what's up? And he's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Carcinogen SDA. And I didn't know who he was at the time. And he's like, how do you know Whitwix? And I was like, oh, I'm doing this event in Florida called Smash the Record. It's a speedrunning, like a Smash event. We're going to bring him to speedrun. And like, this dude just met me and didn't know anything about it. He looked at me and he's like, oh, a speedrunning event. He's like, I might be interested in coming. And I'm like, wait, what? Like no way. And then I ended up finding out this dude is like one of the most famous Resident Evil speedrunners like in the community. And yeah, just on a small whim, he just decided to fly out on his own, come to the event and like take part. And what was incredible about that was there was a ton of like top level speedrunners that I didn't know who they were until I researched them, and they just like went out of their own way to be part of the event and fly out. And some names you may or may not recognize, but that first year we had guys like Majin Phil, Caleb Hart, I Ate Your Pie, and even Ryan Lockwood, who you may or may not know him, but you definitely know Streets 112, the GoldenEye like legendary video, and he's actually from South Florida. And crazy enough, like because of that event, I'm still really good friends with a lot of these people. And Carcy or Carcinogen, I spoke to him for like 2.5 hours on like Thursday night this week. So yeah, it was just crazy seeing like how much the community kind of came together and supported the event. And after that happened and we saw how many people were asking, like I had to deny people because of, hey, like I can't piss off the Smash community and have this event be like taken over by speedrunning when they don't know much about it, right? So right after that event, like the first meeting we had was, all right, guys, like how do we make this a speedrunning event, and how do we take this as serious as possible? And what we ended up looking at was like, okay, we need to have another crew that's like completely managing this side of things. We need to have like real submissions instead of people just DMing me, telling me what they're going to do, right? Like that's what it was at the time was, hey, what are you going to do? How much time do you need? Cool. And looking at, what kind of staffing can we bring on that, can also like help us with spreading, awareness about the event. Cause people in speedrunning didn't know me at all at the time. So I was like, I'm going to fly to a GDQ event and I'm going to go to these ones. I'm going to volunteer and get to know, the staff and the runners a bit more and kind of understand, why it is that, they do this. And, at first it kind of felt more as a, it kind of felt more like a personal goal, I would say, of mine to like go do these things. But like as soon as I went, I just fell in love with the speedrunning community, and like everyone was dope. And what I learned was speedrunners, like everybody knows Smash, or like top players or people. A lot of them play it as well, and they're also really good. I ran a melee tournament at GDQ, and there was like 60 people who entered. And I realized the Smash players, they don't follow speedrunning as much as like speedrunners follow Smash. So
Right.
what I thought about was, okay, how do we, how do we tie in the events together? And I asked the speedrunners straight up and asked Smashers straight up, like, how do we go about this? And, I wanted to have like my own kind of spice to it, but I wanted to make sure that it was authentic and, something like wouldn't piss off either community. And yeah, we ended up just saying like, okay, well, we'll mingle, some people in here, and top Smash players like, Mike Hayes and Silent Wolf and Chillin' Dude, we're also, decent speedrunners. And, it's like, okay, well, we can bring them, we can put them on the Smash stream speedrunning, because the Smashers already know them, and that's a good intro to speedruns, and kind of like vice versa, switch it around. And yeah, we did our best to kind of integrate both communities with each other, right? Like we didn't want to put, certain speedrun games on like the Smash channel because it may not have made sense. But like the really, games like Mario 64 and Sunshine that a ton of Smashers like love, watch, play, talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of vice versa with speedrunning. So, we also talked about like putting, different guys on different couches, right? Like if there was a F-Zero speedrun, we wanted Captain Falcon players in Melee to be on that couch and like talk about, like funny things with that. So,
Right.
yeah, it was just really cool. It was kind of like a super long process. Even now, like there's still a ton of runs I don't know about and I'm learning every day, but speedrunning in itself is like just like incredible, as it is any other game trying to master, just because there's also a level of RNG to a large number of speedrun games. And if you mess up one jump or 1 second or whatever, right, if you die in a run, like it's run ending for a lot of games. And that's the tough part, is like you need to play your best like every time you speedrun, and able to like beat your times, or if you're racing. And yeah, speedrunning just has this whole other world where this is one thing that I told you I want to touch on is, people know speedrun games like Celeste and Mario 64 and Zeldas and, Final Fantasies. All these games are like super intense, super intricate. But the main thing that, I want to like tell people is that any game can be speedrun. Like it doesn't need to be any of those hard games. Like I personally, as a joke, but also seriously, speedrun Dive Kick, which is a 2-button fighting game. And, the message with that is like, there's no RNG. It's a very fun story mode game, and there's like 9 characters you have to fight against. And, the RNG in it is like, how does your opponent react, like the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally just me playing story mode. So imagine playing Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter story mode. Like what I took a lot of pride in was racing the other top Dive Kick players. So like me and Esam, who's a top Smash player,
Mm-hmm.
both of us are good at Dive Kick like competitively, but we were like, hey, let's race each other. We both play the same character, use the same gem. And the message there is like, it doesn't take a ton for us to practice the game. There's not like new strats being discovered. And, I'm not saying this to like invalidate the game, but it's like, you can pick up Dive Kick tomorrow. Anybody that's watching this or watches the VOD can pick up Dive Kick or any game, right? Like all you need is a game and a timer, and that's what speedrunning is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing is a lot of people are afraid to start speedrunning because, they're seeing these hard games or, long times. Like, I have friends who speedrun 4-minute games, right? Like Super Mario Bros. Is under 5-minute world record, and there's a ton of people that are speedrunning that game, seriously and not seriously, right? Just like with any other game. And I've personally been afraid to pick up other games in speedrunning. I'm still trying to kind of find like which game I like. Every time I go to a GDQ, I post a tweet like, hey, show me your speed game. And I've learned and watched and played a ton of different games. I realized I like one type, like 2D platformers.
Yeah.
Like Star Wars and Aladdin and DuckTales and Strider. So I think like Smash Adventure Mode would probably be on that list too. But try to find a game that you like and that you watch, and there's unlimited resources online on like speedrun.com and on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Like people do these things called 12-hour challenges pretty frequently, where it's hey, I'm gonna find a game and learn to speedrun it and like do a full speedrun within 12-hour time. And they do that based off like YouTube videos or other resources. So yeah, there's a um, ton of room to get into speedrunning. And I would say even if you're afraid to jump into a speedrun, just watch one. Watch a GDQ event. Watch a Calithon or an ESA marathon, which is over in Europe. Watch those events and kind of see, what interests you, and what game you might want to pick up too. And the other thing is like speedrunners are super helpful, and they'll the community will respond to tweets or DMs or any questions you have. Again, I've had people devote 2-3 hours of their time just teaching me how to play a game that's 15 minutes to run. So
Right.
yeah, that's what like drew me to speedrunning for
Okay.
sure.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to ask more about that
Yeah.
accessibility of speedrunning because I think a lot of people, including myself, have this notion that like in order to speedrun you have to pick a game and then you have to spend hours and hours learning all the intricate interactions and stuff that you need to do to really be successful at it, but that's
Right.
really not the truth. Like any game can be speedruns somehow, or there's so many
Right.
different ways to be involved.
Yeah, I
But
mean, Brian did the Marvel combo a couple,
yeah.
like a month or so ago, and that technically was a speed run, right? Like he timed himself from start to finish, and um, yeah, that was like super awesome to see. So
Hmm.
that's one good example.
Yeah. No, yeah, that was super fun. I'd be interested to see if more people can find fighting game versions of speedrunning like that.
Yeah, there's a ton for sure.
All right. Well, I think that's it for today's episode. Sherry, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you online?
Raging Cherry on literally all platforms. One word, and yeah, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all that. Yeah, I'm available online anytime. I usually answer DMs or Discord messages or anything like that. So feel free to throw me a follow, and more than happy to talk or give advice or anything like that. So
Yeah. Well, Sherry, thank you very much for joining me. I really enjoyed learning about the different aspects of events and speedrunning and charity work and all the kind of stuff you do. So I appreciate your time, and I will see everyone again in episode 6.
cool. Thank you.